Welcome back everyone, Oz here. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And once again, we're taking a look at r/AskReddit. Long haul truckers, what's the creepiest, most paranormal thing you've seen on the road at night? I was driving near Las Vegas at around 3 a.m. I'd been following a few black SUVs along the highway for a good hour or so. They had Nevada plates that were single-digit numbers in order. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly they all pull off the highway down a dirt path. There was no mile marker or cactus that would indicate a path there. It was just dirt. After pulling off the road, they all turned their lights off. I didn't stick around, it was creepy. They were absolutely going out to a base or testing site. There are a bunch around Vegas. I'm an airman at Neil's and I'd kill somebody to be a part of that cool secret stuff. Let me serve my country in a more significant capacity, damn it. According to the DMV Nevada website, special license plates are also issued to a number of Nevada law enforcement agencies, state elected officials, and the Nevada congressional delegation. Plate 1 belongs to the Nevada governor, 2 belongs to the lieutenant governor. I'm a long truck driver in the Pacific Northwest. We go up into the woods on logging roads and haul logs back from the loggers to the sawmills. We start work very early in the morning, around 2 to 5 a.m., so it's nighttime obviously. One of my coworkers pulled away from the job and started down the logging road. After a couple miles, after the load had settled a bit, he decided to pull over and throw his remaining wrappers around the load. As he's tying his load down, he looked back and saw a mountain lion watching him from 10 feet off at the end of its trailer. He slowly backed up to his driver door and got in. By the time he looked in his mirror, the lion had disappeared. Not paranormal, but it's damn sure creepy. We see lions and bears fairly often out there, but to be that close and out of the truck? We face different obstacles up in the woods than the highway drivers. Remember, it's not the mountain lions you can see that are dangerous, it's the ones you can't. I heard from multiple variations of these threads, if you can see one, it let you. Yep, and it got a friend lying in wait. The one you can see is a distraction. My dad has several stories from hauling logs in Idaho and driving trucks through Utah and Nevada. My favorite is from actually just in his pickup going through Utah. He said there was a light keeping pace with him out in the desert on a moonless night. It kept pace for a minute before it disappeared and his truck turned off. He stopped and turned it on and pulled off at the next diner. The folks at the diner called it a common occurrence. The creepiest is when he was hauling logs in Idaho and was coming down from near Coeur d'Alene area during a snowy winter night. He was putting on chains before heading down a steep grade and said all of the hair stood up on his body. It felt like there was something watching him. Halfway down the switchbacks, he saw a large figure standing on a 20-foot tall embankment. As he got closer, it jumped down and the shoulders were as tall as the cab. In a single bound, it leaped down and then leaped over to the other side of the embankment. At the time, he thought it was Sasquatch. Now he says it was probably a demon trying to make him crash. He didn't stop to remove the chains until he was well away from the mountain. Oh, that actually reminds me of a story. I live in Spokane, which is about 45 minutes away from Coeur d'Alene. I was driving back from my aunt's in the dark one night and just hit a massive wall of fog. I turned the corner and a whole herd of deer come running down the road toward me. I slowed down a lot so I don't hit them. Then, after a few seconds, I see a woman standing in the street, facing away from me with dirty clothes. The area I was in is known to have meth heads and heroin addicts, so I cracked the window and called out to her and asked if she needed me to call anyone. As soon as I spoke, her head whipped around and it looked like she was a burn victim. Huge, lidless eyes, no eyebrows, Voldemort nose, and a mouth that looked like it was melted or sewn up or something. She ran off into the woods and I drove a lot faster than I should have home. Alright, that second story is really weird. I went to a boarding school that was in the woods in Idaho, in Bonners Ferry, which is like an hour or more from Coeur d'Alene. In one of the dorms, there was this 8-foot shadowy figure that would just stare at you sleeping from across the room. The ceilings weren't that high and they're a hunch to it, like the giant in Big Fish. I was there for 2 years. I saw it about a year in, but new kids on their first night saw it. Everyone knew, and if you got transferred to that dorm, And you were warned, in a joking way. We were kids. It's been 15 or so years, and I still just get goosebumps writing that out. Of course, story going around that it was just really a staff member named Jeff that committed suicide and he was just making sure you were asleep. So, that was his name, Jeff. There's something fucked up out there. I would tell more stories, but it's like telling someone you just saw a UFO. You might believe them somewhat, but there's always that sure you did to it. This is a really crazy coincidence though on my end hearing something like that. Let's hear them. Alright, my first month I was in a different dorm, top bunk in the middle of the room. I was taking a nap with my arm hanging off the side. I don't remember what I was dreaming about, but I remember clear as day, just a cat hissing, and then screaming, and someone bit my finger, hard enough to bruise under my nail. I was totally alone in the dorm, and I was sleeping on my stomach, arm dangling so it wasn't me doing it in my sleep. The dorms were separated by one half wall, and I got up, checked it out thinking someone ran over there and was screwing with me. And then there was a bang on the wall from by my bunk, again, totally alone. I can't speak for this because it was in the girls' dorm, but they had a little girl who would run through the bathroom screaming and leaving behind wet footprints. Their dorm was by our little pond, and when we were out there, some girls came out screaming in towels saying it happened. A female staff went in and checked it out, and I remember when she came out, she had that expression that's kind of like a half smile that said, "I don't know, I can't explain it." And she was like, "Yeah, there's a child's footprints in here." I was 23, my newly married husband and I decided driving teen would be a fun adventure after college rather than jumping into the 9 to 5. I was down in Arizona on a long stretch of nothing about 4 a.m. when a guy pulled up next to me waving his CB. I never left mine on, listening to those guys' BS was irritating. I turned on my CB and he told me I had a blown tire. I thanked him, figuring I would stop at the next truck stop. He kept harassing me to pull over and check my tire for a good 40 miles. I finally got to a next town and a pilot truck stop. Got out and checked my truck. No blown tires anywhere. No clue what the guy would have done to me, but so glad I trusted my gut and didn't stop. Not paranormal, but I have plenty of stories as a young woman on the road. Maybe a bit off the mark, but it still scared the crap out of me. I was headed west on I-76 here in Denver, just cruising along at about 70 miles per hour. Out of nowhere, I saw a massive, almost solid cloud of what looked like dirt coming at me. I'd say it was at least 20 feet wide and 10 feet tall. I scanned ahead of me, but I couldn't see any vehicle it could have came from. With nowhere to go, I slowed down and took the hit, hoping there wasn't anything big enough in there to come through the windshield or jack up my truck. Owner, operator. It was pretty loud as I smashed through it. The instant it hit, I knew it wasn't dirt. I immediately hit the washers because I couldn't see a damn thing through all of the carnage. My windshield was painted with guts. Turns out it was bees. Freaking huge bees that sounded like rocks when they hit. I can't even imagine seeing that swarm if I was walking. They would kill the crap out of anything in their path. My dad is a truck driver, and about 13 to 15 years ago, while resting at the side of the road, he woke up in the morning seeing that his entire trailer was robbed empty. My dad's a heavy sleeper, but his cargo could not have been stolen without at least a forklift, and everyone would have woken up by a forklift unloading a trailer. My dad suspects that robbers use a pump to get some kind of chloroform into his cabin to make sure he couldn't wake up. A few years ago, some animal rights activists managed to release thousands of mink from a farm next to a large road. At night. The road was more blood than tarmac for miles, remains everywhere, and don't even get me started on the smell. One time on a long distance drive, I started seeing white spots about a foot in diameter on the road, probably 30 to 40 over the span of a mile or so, and I couldn't quite figure out what they were. Eventually, I came to a pickup truck with a large cage built in the back, pulled over the side of the road. The door to the cage was wide open and it was completely empty. The man driving it was staring at the empty cage and scratching his head. The white spots were apparently loose chickens. I was at a truck stop in Arizona. I was pulling through the fuel island, and right as I was about to leave, roughly 15 cop cars came flying into the parking lot with a SWAT van. They surrounded a truck that was already parked for the night. I heard later that the driver had lost a tire or something off his trailer and it had killed a guy on the side of the road. Don't know how true that story was, but it sounded plausible. At the old Flying J in El Paso, I had pulled through the fuel island and was filling out logs and whatnot after filling up when someone started screaming for help over the CB. It's not unusual to hear kids f***ing around or whatever, but this sounded like a full-grown man and it didn't sound fake. It only happens for about 15 to 20 seconds and then silence. Some people started asking the guy where he was, but never got a response. Suddenly, another big rig in the parking lot starts to take off right as a couple of cop cars pull into the truck parking area. The big rig takes out a smaller sign and then jumps a curb out into the service road for I-10. Turns out a student got pissed at his instructor and stabbed him before leading the cops on a short high-speed chase. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you want to see more AskReddit content, check out the link in the description below. And until next time, I'll see you all later.